All right, we're going to start today the listing paperwork. There's not going to be anything on the screen. I'm just going to kind of go over a packet of paperwork when you're taking a listing. Before we get started, I know I have a lot of new people here, so I want to urge you guys to set up your voicemails on your cell phones, because nothing's more aggravating than a seasoned agent calling up and it goes to an automated thing. And it's very simple. Just, hi, this is Wendy Schaller with Realty One Group. Sorry I missed your call. Please leave your name and number and I'll give you a call back. That is it. It's not going to be anything major, but you have to disclose that you're a realtor if you have gone to and joined the LVR. If you haven't yet, this is Wendy Schaller. I'm a real estate agent with Realty One Group, right? So when your license comes in from the division, you actually become a real estate agent. When you go down to the LVR and take the 2-day course and you're sworn in, then you become a licensed realtor. So just make sure you don't say you're a realtor until you are actually a realtor, right? Very first thing you should do, you always have to disclose you're a realtor. Some agents are like, I'm just not going to tell them I'm a realtor. No. Once you're a realtor, you're obligated to tell everybody you're a realtor. Hi, I'm Wendy. I'm with Realty One Group. I'm a realtor. You need to say that, right? Email signatures, I'm going to go over in the one design. Actually, I am going to go. I don't know what I was thinking. No, we're not going to go in there today. That's tomorrow's class. We have Tuesday tools. We pick one of the tools in the back office, and tomorrow we're going over one design, and it's got your email signatures, how to print flyers, all of that. But there's also another section in there that I'm going to walk you through. So there's 2 sections you can get an email signature. But my other thing is, because you do want an email signature, not just your name, right? You want it to say Realty One Group with the logo and all your information, your license number. So we'll go over that tomorrow. But while you guys have some time, super important, in your back office zone, upload a picture and upload like a generic bio of what I've done for the last 10 years. I'm in customer service. I know you don't have a lot of real estate background right now, but you need some kind of a bio. Don't just you have to have your picture. If you don't have your picture, you're missing out on a ton of referrals. I only give referrals to other agents that actually have a picture. They've taken the 10 minutes to put a picture and a bio in there. So super important you do that. Also, we'll go over logos and the style guide and all of that tomorrow in the tools class. So right now, listing paperwork. This is when you've got a listing. We took the class last week was actually walking through like your listing appointment. This is doing the paperwork. So say you've accepted or they've chosen you to be their listing agent. This is going to be all the paperwork that you're going to do. I like to do what's called front loading. And I front load all of my listing paperwork before we hit live on the market. Because there's a form in here, it's a 5-page form called the SRPD, Seller Real Property Disclosure Form. And you cannot touch it, you cannot even write the date on it. It's this, you have to hand it to the seller and they have to fill it out, right? But getting that back from them is a nightmare. So I always say, I'm going to give this to you, I'm going to pick it back up on Tuesday, we're going to go live on Wednesday. So make sure you have it filled out because we're not going to go live till I have this. I tell them that because you don't want to go under contract and then an agent can ask you for that form before they make an offer and you don't have that form. And what it does is it discloses any known issues that the sellers had with that house. So if I don't have that form, now I got to go chase them to try to get it and they're working and it's a problem. So you want to get all of your documents done ahead of time, called front loading them, right? So according to this paperwork here that we drew up, so you got the listing, you need to fill out all the listing agreement and all of the other paperwork. There's certain information that you need to find out before doing that. Now, if you took last week's class, when you're going to do the listing presentation, you're still going to pull up a tax record. And the reason why you pull up the tax record when you're just doing the presentation is to make sure you're talking to the person that can legally sell that house. Whoever's on that tax record is the person that you need to talk to in order to understand why they're selling, when they're selling, and all of that stuff. So you had that tax record from when you did your listing presentation. So when you need it when you're filling out your paperwork. But you're also going to ask the seller, usually at that point, they're going to call you and say, yes, I want you to list my home. Okay, I'm going to ask for your mortgage balance. How much do you owe on the home? Because if they owe more than what they can sell the home for, now it becomes a short sale. Whole nother class there. The last time I did a short sale was 2000, It took me 2.5 years to do one sale, and it was an $80,000 property. So 2.5 years with 80, I was only, if I got my full commission that I had asked for, I would have gotten about $2,400. But because a short sale, you're working with the bank and they tell you what they're going to pay you. I think I got $1,200 for 2.5 years worth of work. And every Monday I'm on the phone calling, and then they hang up on you, and then you call, and then they send you to another department. It's a whole thing, right? So they're not easy to do. They've gotten better over the years, but a short sale is when the market kind of turns upside down and everybody bought up here, but now the market dropped and now they have to sell here. So they owe more on that property than what the property is valued at. So you have to ask the bank if they'll take the mortgage short. Short does not mean short process. It means short in the mortgage, right? So with that, there's all of that stuff. So you want to ask them, how much do you owe on it? Because even if they're $10,000 below, either the seller's going to have to pay that difference, or we're going to have to ask the buyers to pay more than what it's valued at, right? But right now we're in a pretty good market to where people can at least break even or have some equity in there. Also, you're going to want to prepare a net sheet so you kind of have an idea of where they fall. If last week's class was when I do a listing presentation, I never give them that value. I give them a $50,000, $60,000 range. And I say, when you're closer to listing, then we'll go over and we'll give you a closer value on that property. Because if you give them the value, they don't need you. Now they're going to go to another realtor and see what value can you give me. And they think it's all about the value of the property instead of the value of the work that realtor is going to put in there. So when you give them that number, they don't need you anymore. So we want to just keep it open-ended. And then when you're ready and you've decided to choose me as your realtor, I'll go ahead and fine tune that and give you a better idea on that pricing, right? So at that point, now they want to give you the listing. We need a better price on that house. So with that, we need to prepare a net sheet. And I always circle at the top of the net sheet the word estimated, because it is estimated. That net sheet is done off of the numbers you're going to plug in there, but also random like title and escrow fees. We don't know what title and escrow company we're going to use, because that happens when the buyer makes the offer. So it's estimated of, title and escrow fees don't change, but $60 to $100 a piece. Like every title and escrow company stays pretty much the same. But there can be closing costs, and there can be repair fees and all that. So I always say that they're estimated, right? So you're gonna make a net sheet, and Rock Title has a great net sheet that you can download and put on your cell phone. Heather just did the class last week. It's called the Rock app. I think Rock Title app, I'm not sure. Amazing app, I love it. I haven't done, because now pretty much all title companies have this app, and Rock Title just got it a few months ago, and we have access to it now through Rock Title. But it's an amazing app. So I've been using it for about 16 years. 10 to 16 years, I don't know when they came out with it, but I was like, I can't do my listings without this app, because I like to change the numbers in front of them. Then you put the numbers you put in there, and you shake your phone, and then it brings up, 30,000 above, 20,000 above, and then the actual price that you put in there, and then 20,000 below, 30,000 below. So it gives them a range, and I don't have to keep doing net sheets. They get one and done. So it's a really cool app. So if you don't have it, you can download it or just see Heather at the marketing rep at Rock Title. She's in the last office on the right here on the hallway, and she can go ahead and help you set that up. But then you're going to also ask them, hey, I need you to get some stuff together before we go live. I'll need extra keys for all the doors, any gates. If they have a key on their utility, what is it? Their box. I forget the box that's on the side. Help me, guys. The box for the, you know which one I'm talking about. That if something trips, and the breaker box. Yes, thank you. Okay, so what happens? A lot of homeowners put a lock on there. We forget about it because we're not using it every day, and then you get the home inspector out there, and he can't cut a lock. So guess what? Now you're going to have a $150 trip charge to have them come back once they remove that lock. So I always ask for extra keys or to leave them on the counter and stuff like when they're doing their home inspection. But if you can get it ahead of time, or just tell them to remove that lock. A lot of people will put a lock on that box if it's in front of their side gate, because anybody can come up, shut their lights off and stuff, and you don't want that. So I get why they put it on there, but just make sure that you have a key to get rid of that. If they have a security screen on their front or back door that locks separately on a separate key from the front door, make sure you get that key. You need that. And then again, any side gates. Ask them for any alarm codes. I always ask them for the HOA information because I call the HOA before I go live, because the information they give you might not be the most current, because they might bought their home 7 years ago, so they're like, oh yeah, I only pay $70 a month. Well, they don't look at their bill, and it has actually gone up to $85 a month, and they're just writing a check, not thinking anything. But I also want to call the HOA to find out what's included in that fee. Are there any parks or pools? Is it gated? Is there a security guard? I like to put all of that information into my listings, right? So you're going to ask them for the HOA information. I'm going to see how much they can give me, like what's the monthly fee, if there's a buyer transfer or setup fee, which usually they don't know. Are there any sit-in lid fees? Does everybody know what a sit-in lid is? In a master plan community like Summerlin, you're going to have sit-in lids, and it maintains the streets, the parks, whatever. But when you're buying the home, it's usually like $18,000 to $20,000 they have to pay. So they're going to have their mortgage payment, then they're going to have their Summerlin fee, then they're going to have their HOA fee, and then they could possibly have a sit-in lid fee as well. But once that, some homeowners choose to pay it up front. And then other ones are like, nope, I'll just pay it yearly or twice a year or whatever it is that they set up, and it'll travel with the property. And once it's paid off, but it's going to travel if they haven't paid it. So we need to know that ahead of time to put it in the MLS when we take the listing. Let's see, are there any trash or utilities included with the HOA? I've even run into one HOA. I actually sold my uncle a house on the east side, the southeast side, and their HOA covers ADT. And I was like, oh my gosh, like for all of the homes in the neighborhood. I'm like, that's pretty cool. But we don't know if they cover, some of them cover trash, some of them cover water because they don't maintain their own front yards. The HOA maintains it. So they might cover all of that. So we need to find out what's included. Are there any extra keys for pools or clubhouses or codes for any of that stuff? You guys are going to need that ahead of time. How many parks are there? If there's a dog area. How much the CC&R resale package and demand are. And your clients aren't going to know that because they didn't have to buy it when they purchased the property. The seller gives it to the new buyer, right? It's the obligation of the seller to give those HOA resale package to the buyer. So that's a question I'm going to ask the HOA. So I ask all these questions up front, and then I get the phone number for the HOA from them, and I call the HOA and I ask them the same numbers, the same questions, so I get the same answers, right? Or if not, I need to update that. I'm hearing it straight from the horse's mouth of the HOA, but I want to know how much my client is aware of what's going on, right? And then I always ask if there's any other fees associated with the property. So if you need to find out if there's a sit or lid, the HOA is not going to really know that. They're going to say they might, because again, if they bought it brand new, they had the option to pay it off or travel with the property. Also, sometimes when you're buying in a new community, they're going to say phase 1 and phase 2, you don't get that sit-in lid because they're trying to get everybody to buy in there in the first 2 phases. So starting phase 3, they have a sit-in lid. So that's why the HOA is not going to know about this specific property. So there's a website you can go to find out if they have a sit or lid balance. It's www.amgnv.com to find out if they have a sit or lid balance. Then next page. If it's in a condo, do you have the paperwork? Look at the very bottom, the last sentence on the bottom of the front page there. Yep.
Oh,
yep. I just say it out loud because the people on the that I'm videotaping this for don't have it. But yeah, everything should be there right there for you. Now, if it's in a condo, you need to find out if it's FHA approved and VA approved, right? So to do that, you actually have to go to HUD.gov to see if it's FHA approved, and I think that's lgy.va.gov to find out if it's VA approved. Condos are a little different. They don't all take FHA and VA loans because there's a lot of times there's litigations on them, meaning that somebody sued the HOA when they were building it, and it could be that the curbing is 2.5 inches when it should have been 2 inches. So they have to they're in a litigation to redo all the curbing, or the roof was having some kind of issue. So now there's a litigation because they have to redo all the roofs in the community. So the lender decides if they want a loan on something and how big that litigation is. But if there's a litigation, it's gonna let you know if it's FHA approved or VA approved. So with that, Make sure that they have mailbox keys, gate keys, clickers for the gate, clickers for the garage. You're going to need all of that stuff. Explain to them that they'll need to leave all that stuff when they vacate. So I generally, like if it's a vacant home and they're not going to be there, I ask for this all up front and then I hold on to it. I do not leave it on the property because you might get somebody that is it's a neighbor and they bring it in, they're like, oh, they have an extra gate clicker. They're going to steal your gate clicker. And now who do you think is going to be obligated to replace that? It's going to be you because the home is vacant. When that home is vacant, you're responsible for that home. Even when the home is not vacant, my people have moved from one end of town to the other, and then they're like, hey, can you go by and make sure we don't have any mail? Well, I'm on this side with you too, but it becomes your responsibility, especially if it's vacant. I will drive by that house every single day that I know that I've got a showing. If somebody showed my house at 9 a.m., Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, guess what? Every night, I'm going to make sure that that house is secure before I go home in the evening. I don't care that it's across town. It is my responsibility. You are responsible for these homes, right? If the owner lives in it, generally they want to make sure their doors are locked. But I've had people leave front doors open, like wide open. I've had them put the key back in the lockbox, but didn't shut the lockbox, so it's just sitting there open with the key exposed. Anything can happen. I had somebody do an open house. They locked the whole house up, but 2 days later, when I went back by, because they were doing an open house, another realtor was doing it, so I'm like, okay, did you lock everything? I sure did. I go by 2 days later, and you open the front door, and the slider to the backyard is wide open. Why did you, oh, I must have left, I was on the phone. I'm like, okay, but you've got to secure the homes, right? So it's your responsibility. So if something gets damaged or broken, it comes down to you guys. So just make sure that you're watching that.
So that is, so the seller is, okay, let's say there's property behind, right? And somebody breaks into the home, we're responsible as a listing?
We're not responsible for that. The home was broken into, so that if it's something that they want to, do for their claim on their insurance. But if there was something that wasn't taken care of on our end, like the front door not locked or the windows, because if you're going to do an open house, especially if it's not your listing, you're going to walk that. Once it's done, say your open house ends at 3, you lock that front door and you make sure every window and every door in that house is locked. Because people will go through, if you're downstairs, they're upstairs, they're leaving the windows open, and they could potentially come in and pretend to squat later on that day. Then you can't get them out. You've got a squatter in there. How did they get in there? Nothing was broken. So obviously, if they make a police report and nothing was broken, how did they get in? Well, you were the last one in there, so you must have not locked something, right? So your responsibility is to keep track of that home. Now, things happen. Years ago, we had break-ins all of the time because they're stealing the copper pipes. You would leave your washer, dryer, and refrigerator in there, and then they steal those too. So we can't, there's things that are out of our control, but if it's in your control, you need to be making sure you maintain that and locking up that house. But
so the reason I asked was, on Friday, I went to go show a home, and somebody had broken into the home because boxes were scattered everywhere. That's the reason I asked, was the listing agent responsible for that? I had to call them.
Did you call them?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, good.
Pictures, video.
Yep.
Looks like somebody in the garage and broke the wardrobe, so it had a lock on it. So, we took pictures because I didn't want to.
Yeah, say that it was you.
The last one.
And the lockbox, yeah. That's the next thing, is that when you go to use.
I was wondering, is that a listing agent?
It's not, because it was clearly broken into, but the police are going to investigate, and they're going to say it's not their responsibility unless they find that there was foul play with the realtor leaving the house open and not checking it. But the police are going to have to do a report, and they're going to have to say, hey, nothing was broken. There's no doors. Obviously something was left unlocked. So then they go back to the lockbox. Who was the last person in there? Which is why the minute you access that lockbox, you are now the person that's the last in there, right? So if the key's missing, you're to call and say, hey, just letting you know, and I call, and if they don't answer, I leave a voicemail and I send an email. So it's in writing. I viewed your property, 123 Main Street. There's no key in the box, blah, 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 blah. Because we get fined if they're thought that we stole a key. It's like $150 or something like that. Because back in the day, when houses were going in like minutes, agents were stealing the keys out of there so nobody else would come in and show it. So then when they go to make the offer, there's nobody else, and so it got to the point they were finding us because, you're doing whatever you got to do to get your clients' houses, but it got to that point. So even if there's a key missing, you need to report that. If you open that lockbox and you go to open the door and the door's open, don't go in. You need to call the agent and say, hey, I accessed the key when I went to the front door. The front door is open. I am not entering. I'm not going in there. My life is too valuable. You might want to call. I'm going to put the lockbox back. The key back. If you need me to make a report, I will, but I'm out. I'm not going in there because we do have people that squat. I had it was a vacant home, and I was showing a home one time. I have a class on how to properly show a vacant home, new build, and owner occupied. So it was a vacant home. I get the lockbox key, and the key of the lockbox. I walk up, and I always knock, knock, knock. I go to open the door, and I open the door. I'm like, hi, this is Wendy Scheller. I'm with Realty One Group. Anybody home? Even if it's vacant, right? So on this one, I knock, knock, knock. I undo the key, and the door opens, and a 2-year-old is standing there. And I'm like, what? There's stuff everywhere. And I'm like, whoa. This man comes running up, and he grabs the door. He's like, wait, live here. You need to get out of here. I said, it says it's vacant. It's not vacant. I live here. And he slams the door. So I'm like, why would the agent put vacant? I'm immediately thinking it was the agent because there's stuff everywhere. There's couches. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I call the agent. She goes, no, it's vacant. I said, it is not vacant. There is a whole family in there. So I had to wait. She goes, can you just wait? I'm on my way. So she got there, and I'm like, okay, just so we know. She called the police, but I'm like, I'm staying out of it. Like, she was like 5 minutes down the road. It's not like she was a half hour away. I'm not staying. I'm like, just letting you know, there's a whole family there. I put the key back, like I would be out. But she says, I'm 5 minutes away. Can you wait? Sure. We as realtors have to work with our fellow realtors. And so I'm like, okay, I'll give you a statement so you can give all the information to the police. I'm out. Call me. Here's my number. Call me if you need anything. But it happens. So you have to watch. Mm-hmm.
Did you have clients with you?
I did.
Mm-hmm. How did you manage that?
Nothing, because we never entered the home.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You just told them, hey, guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they know. They're like, whoa, We've walked in where you can clearly see that somebody was squatting. It was a vacant home, and they were squatters, but they left, and the sellers never cleaned the house. So when you go in there, there's just trash everywhere. So I go in there, and I call them. I'm like, hey, just so you know, they're like, yeah, we had squatters, but the seller's refusing to pay to have it cleaned, so we're just not cleaning it. As soon as my clients heard they're squatters, they're like broken in, they're like, nope, I'm out. They don't want to buy the house. So you, as a listing agent, you have to do everything possible. And yes, sometimes it's costly to us because I have sellers like, I'm not pulling the weeds. Okay, your presentation, it's the presentation of the home. Let me tell you, my first listing, I was 7 months pregnant, and it was a mobile home that had been converted to real property on the east side. And it was just a gentleman. He was in his 60s. He from New York. He was here. He's like, I got 3 months. I'm going to stay here and sell this place. Okay. I said, if you want VA, you have to paint your eaves, like around where the roof comes down. There's a piece of wood, right? You have to. Yeah, it's not flashing. It's called. God, I'm having a hard time with but it's just a piece of wood that goes all the way around the roof. Fascia board, thank you, yes. So if there is any paint chipping or wood that's peeling, it needs to be sanded and repainted. Yeah, for VA loans. They're very specific about that. So he says, I want everybody to be eligible because he was a veteran. I said, well, it needs to be painted. I'm not paying for it. It has to be painted. Then we can't put it in there. No, I'm telling you it needs to be painted. I'll hold the ladder and you can paint it. And sure enough, 7 months pregnant, I'm on a ladder because I was brand new to real estate. So this is why I teach these classes. Don't feel obligated to be like, no, if you don't want it, I'm telling you, we can't offer it and be done. But I was like, oh my God, because what happened was I was cocktailing and we were just not getting pregnant because we were trying. We're like, this isn't happening. I was only staying at Cocktail Waitress because I'm like, the insurance is great. I put my 2-week notice in, and 2 days later, I found out I was pregnant. I'm like, great, now I don't have a job. Going into real estate full force. I had my license, but I hadn't done anything. And he was, I was in a high-end martini lounge cocktailing, and he was a guest in there. We would come in there almost every day, just hanging out in there. So he's like, oh, you want to sell my house? I'm like, sure, I don't have a job anymore. And I was like, this would be great. So that's why I did that. So I was like, oh my gosh, I got to do whatever. You don't have to do whatever. Okay, I'm here to tell you, you don't have to do whatever, because the ones that cause you all that grief demanding are the ones that will potentially get you in a lawsuit later on, because nothing you do is going to be good enough for them. So my husband was out of town because he traveled a lot. So I'm like, okay, I guess I have to be out there. So this guy just stood there and held the ladder while I painted his eaves. And I was like, you know what, this is ridiculous. But so I learned, you live and learn. Again, first listing, now I wouldn't be doing that, just so you know. But it takes some time to build that courage up. I call it posture, right? No, this is how I do my business. This is what I do. This is what to expect. If you don't like it, maybe I'm not the realtor for you. That's it, plain and simple.
Just having the web app, how to handle with buyers.
Mm-hmm. Yep, same thing with sellers, right? Same thing. Everybody thinks we are their servants. There's some people that really respect us and other ones that just think we are obligated to do whatever they want. They're going to tell us the price. They're going to tell us where we're going to advertise. No, that's why you have a really good listing presentation and you show them what you do and they choose you off of that. And I'll say, you know what, nowhere in my listing presentation did it say I was going to stand up on a ladder and paint your roof. It did not. So that's not something that I do. It's outside my scope. My scope, you're hiring me to be your realtor, to negotiate for you, to market for you, to list your home, to do this, da-da-da-da-da. Those are my responsibilities. If you have a lender question, I'm going to refer you to your lender or a lender. I stay in my path and I do not go off, because they'll have you chasing around and doing this and, oh, hey, find someone to donate all my stuff to. Sometimes we go ahead and do that and set that up because we know it's not going to get done. I also take into consideration the age of the client. Sometimes when they're elderly, they're used to their kids doing things and their kids are in other states and they're like, you do need to assist. The large majority of my clients are all elderly. Don't know why, they're just attracted to me and it's always worked and that's fine. And so with that, there's a little extra hand holding that they need because they're used to somebody else doing it for them. But there's things that you can say, this is outside my scope. This is not something I want to do or I feel comfortable doing or whatnot. But yes, so I got plenty of stories of 20 years worth of real estate that we can go into. And they'll come out throughout the classes. There's always something that it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea. So I just don't want you guys to start off your real estate career thinking you're obligated to do everything that they want you to do. This is your job. This is your scope. And then put boundaries, because they always try to overstep those boundaries, right? Okay, so explain that they'll need to leave all those keys. If it's vacant, you're going to hold on to that. When you bring the keys back is the day of or the day before closing. I usually try to do it the day of that it's going to record. Because if somebody breaks in that night before and I brought all the keys back, then they've got the keys to the house and you're rekeying. It's your responsibility to rekey that house, buy all new clickers from for the garage and for the gate and all of that. That was your responsibility to hold on to them and keep them safe. But usually if you hide them somewhere in the house and then just tell the agent where they're at. Most people will walk in, see it's a vacant home and they're not searching for that. But don't leave anything open on the counters. Put them in the drawers. But if there are any additions, I verify if the additions were permitted and they have HOA approval. Some people will put up a patio cover and they're like, well, nobody can see it because there's no neighbors behind me. Nope, but you still need approval. Anything that shows above your fence line, you're going to need approval for. Even your landscaping, you need approval from your neighbors, and the HOA. But again, the problems that we have are the older homes that just threw up a patio cover and it's all made out of wood and it goes right into the ground. Well, now you risk termites. So you're probably not going to be able to get a VA loan unless they get pest clearance on that. And then they're going to make you dig and pour some concrete around that because you can't have wood going directly into the dirt, right? So there's things that you kind of have to know walking through some homes. But again, you can always call your broker or sales manager and just say, hey, real quick question. I'm taking a listing. This is what I saw. Are we eligible for this? Sometimes you need to call the lender. Is this something we're eligible for, a VA loan, if it looks like this? No broken windows, no exposed tack stripping, no broken or missing tiles on your roof. It all affects the loan process and what you can offer. Ask if they have, if they participated in the Southern Nevada Water Authority, the Water Smartscaping? Because if so, that puts a lien on their house and it'll show up in the prelim. So they were given money from the Water Authority to take out all of their landscaping. And so with that, the new buyer might be able to pay that back. But where we're running into problems is the backyard. People want to add a pool, but they did waterscaping in their whole backyard and now they can't add a pool. So it's important that you ask that because that does have to be disclosed. And then ask them if they have a foreclosure notice, if they've been included, if they've stopped any payments. Are you current on everything? And that includes their HOA. Their HOA takes first position and they can take their home from them. They're not in the business of selling homes, so they don't really want it, but if they don't pay their HOA, and that's what happened with that one short sale I had. He stopped paying, but he told me he was current on his HOA. His HOA was $13 a month. It became a $6,000 HOA lien because it went to collections. And once it went to collections, the new buyers don't want to pay that. He doesn't have money as a seller to pay it. And the Bank of America, who it was, said, like, it's not our problem. So we kept getting offers, and then it gets to that point and nobody wants to pay it, so it goes right back on the market. And then we get another offer. So and in the end, I listed it at $80,000 with a $6,000 HOA lien. Bank of America said, no, no, no. And after 2.5 years, we sold it for $73,000, and Bank of America paid that lien. So they should have just taken the first offer, but it cost them so much money, and then we had to keep the utilities on, and then they would lock us out, and then because they're like, oh, nobody's living in it. It was a whole big process. So make sure they're current on their HOA liens as well. Then you're going to fill out all your documents, and then for the seller to sign, and I do it through Authentisign. We'll go through all of that. I call it front loading my listing. I get everything done, and I don't go hit the market till I have all those documents in hand. And then you'll follow the residential document checklist form for all traditional listings. So if you look at hold on. In this package, you're going to have a checklist. And we have this checklist for it looks like this. I only did the front page because this one's for listings. But your transaction coordinator in Maria's office, she has the full package if you need it. But if you see here, this one here, this is your checklist. The very top one is listings. The very bottom one starts the buyer checklist, and it goes to page 2, right? And then there's a whole bunch of things. On this side, there are new builds, traditional builds, short sales, and REO. So right now, the only two sections that you guys need to really look at are the new and the traditional. And a new build, there's very few documents that you're needing for the process, but you're not really listing new builds. So that's more for buyers. So traditional is what we're doing. We're relisting a traditional home. So it shows you the checklist. You need the duties owed. I'm going to read it to you so everybody on the camera can hear. The duties owed, the Realty One marketing agreement, the tax record, the residential disclosure guide, just the signature page. It's like 30-some pages long that you're going to leave them. We just need the signature page. SRPD, which is that seller real property disclosure form. The Realty One affiliated business agreement. A Realty One Group broker comp and compliance fee for your commission. And then the wire fraud. That's just what you need to list it. Then when you get an offer, it will tell you, in your SkySlope checklist, it will tell you all the forms that you will need to upload on the buyer side. Even though you don't represent the buyer, you're going to get forms from the buyer that the seller must sign that is required. So if you're new, I just want to let you know, you're going to fill out all your forms in Transaction Desk through the MLS. Then once everything's agreed upon, then everything gets uploaded into SkySlope. SkySlope is our digital file holding area, right? So forms are made and filled out in Transaction Desk, but digitally held and filed in SkySlope. So you're gonna have all your client fill all this out in Transaction Desk for your client. Once they sign it, then it goes to, when you're on the mentee program, it goes to Maria, me and Tim, we review it, and then we put it into, Maria will put it into SkySlope for those first 3 transactions. After that, and you're 100%, you can decide if you want to use a transaction coordinator, because her job is to review and upload it into SkySlope. That's it. It's not to fill out your forms. You're still obligated to fill out your forms. But if you're 100% and you don't want a transaction coordinator, that's why we teach you how to use SkySlope to upload it yourself, right? So that's how that works. So now let's start with the paperwork. We're going to go over it. I'm not going to go into full detail, but I'm going to kind of tell you what to put in each of the spots, right? So duties owed form. Super important, everybody understands this is the first form, whether you're buying or selling, that needs to get filled out and signed, signed, dated, and timed before everything. So even if you're sending this in another document, you always send this first in Transaction Desk, wait for them to sign it and date it and time it. It comes back to you, then you send everything else. Because if the division is going to audit your file, they're going to make sure this date and time is different than the next document, right? So you always want to, that's how I do it. Like if I'm representing a buyer, you're going to have this in the BBRA. I send them this, they sign it, it comes back, then I send them the BBRA to sign, and then it comes back, right? So this form always needs to be filled out first. Who's the realtor? Me, my license number, and then who do I represent? Jane and John Doe. And then you're gonna mark, which I forgot to mark on here, if they were sellers or buyers. You would mark, because we're in the listing class, you would mark seller, which I don't have a pen to do, but you guys do that on yours. And then the broker. Doesn't matter which office you're in, your broker is Mark Otero. He's the corporate broker for Realty One here in Nevada. And then it asks the company, Realty One Group. Are there any other licensees involved with the transaction? No, unless you're on a team. You are working with me and Tim or your broker or whatever, but you're just asking us questions. What that is if you're going out of town and now I have to deal with your client and call your client, then you would write yes, and there's a whole nother page of the supplemental to the duties owed, and you'd have to put my information in there. But it's no unless you have another licensed realtor working and talking to your client on your file. Okay? Any questions?
Actually, yeah, no, but in case of an emergency, and you do have to ask another realtor to do something for you, you have to change it.
You don't have to, well, you would change it, update it, but then there's a supplemental one on the second page of it. And it would be my name, my license number, and then your client has to sign it and agreeing that they're allowing that person to jump in. Then we have the duties owed, and why I put it in this, not the duties owed, the residential disclosure form. I put it in this form, in this order, because in the listing agreement, there's a spot that asks the seller has to initial that they received it. So when I'm sending my documents to my clients, I do the duties owed, I do the residential, and I do the broker compensation in that order because they have to mark everything in there, and then I go into my listing agreement, right? So this is the one that's like 30 some pages long, 32, 36. It looks like this on page 1, but all we need is this residential signature page, right? Now, once your clients sign a document, you guys have 48 hours to get it over to me, Tim and Maria, or if you're at 100%, you have 48 hours to get it into SkySlope once your clients sign it. People have their clients sign things and then they don't get it to us for 3 months and we don't even know that you guys are under contract. You can't do it because if the division were to walk in here and say, I need the file for 123 Main Street, and we're like, we don't have that file, but it's been open for 2 months, we get fined because you guys did not upload your paperwork and let us know you're under contract, right? So this will be Form 2 as your residential disclosure guide, but again, all we need in SkySlope is the signature page. And then the signature is literally date and client printed name, client signed name. That's it. Super easy. Your notice of broker compensation. Hold on, let me see if I have this other page here. There's that, yes. Okay. So this one, the notice of broker compensation fee, there's a page that goes along with it that you were given when you joined Realty One Group, but I'm going to give it to you again. And it is the commission structure. Why this is important is because this is what you're going to put on this page. So these numbers here are how you calculate what the transaction fee is. So again, our commission structure, our commission disbursement, what is it? The compensation, what was it? Transaction fee, sorry. I'm having a day with my words today, but the transaction fee. We at Realty One Group charge $200 for every $200,000 of your sales price. So if your seller's listing their home from $1 to $200,000, it would be a $200 charge. From $200 to $400,000, it would be a $400 charge. So when you're filling out this form, that's how you calculate this very first number. So you're going to put the address and your client's name. This first number is that transaction fee. So you have to figure out what you're listing it for. If it's going to teeter between the $600 and the $610 price range, that means you're either going to charge $600 or $800 if it goes over $600,000. Just put the $800 and you can reduce it. But if you put $600, it's very hard to go back and say, oh, now you're going to have to owe us another $200. They'd rather you reduce the price than your clients than having to come after them for more money, right? So just put the higher one and say, hey, you're teetering. I'm going to put the higher one. If it comes in below $600, this is what you're going to be charged. So it's $600 for the transaction fee, and the $200 document storage fee is the one that goes on this second line down here, right? And then you total that up to add right here. Now, if you are having your clients pay it, because this is optional, either you have your buyer or seller pay it or you're paying it, right? However you decide to do your business, is how you're going to fill out this third line. So 600, 200 is 800. That lets us know that you're charging your clients. But 600, 200, and then write in their agent to pay, that's how we know we're going to the agent to collect that fee, right? You can do 0, 0, 0, but we kind of like you to put agent to pay so it's very clear for everyone, agent's going to pay it. And then don't worry about the instruction to escrow here, because here's the thing is we're just taking the listing, we're not opening escrow, so you don't have to fill this part out, right? It will auto-populate when you're on the buyer side, but for the seller side, we don't know, because we won't know until we get an offer and we accept that. So then you just have your client sign, right? So transaction fee, storage fee, and who's paying it is the total down there. Any questions on that form? Nope. And then again, you're just going to use this commission instruction for the transaction fee on how to figure out that first fee there. All right, this is what a tax record looks like. I pull up, there's a bunch of different views you can do in the MLS, but I do the one-page view. So it'll pull up one, and then there's a little drop down that you just click and it says one page, and it looks like this. We have to upload this into SkySlope as well, so it will be required of you. You're going to do the listing agreement and the tax record all at the same time, right? So I always have you fill this out because it gives you information on the property, but it also tells you who the owners are. And why that's important is because of how they're signing. Are they in an LLC? Is it in a trust? Or is it just the husband? Is it just the husband and wife? Because again, I like to tell the story. We have heard that parents go on a month's vacation, and when they're gone, their kids might be involved in drugs and need drug money, so they try to sell the house out from underneath them while they're gone. So that's why I say it's super important that whoever you're meeting with are the people that are on this tax record, right? But it's also, this tax record's going to, very first thing on the top left is going to give you the parcel number. That parcel number is needed to designate what property, and you're going to put that in your listing agreement as well. But it'll tell you bedrooms, bathrooms, and then all that kind of stuff. Square footage. So that's that. Now we go into the listing agreement, right? So you're going to make sure it's the ER listing agreement, not EA. EA means I'm going to just sell it, they're letting me take the listing, but they can take buyers themselves. It could be office exclusive, meaning I can't sell it to anybody outside of Realty One. We don't want that. You want fair market. Like, we have 2,000 agents at Realty One Group, but I want to be able to sell it to all 17,000 we have in Nevada, right? So ER, and if you put an EA, if you have your clients fill this out and it's the EA form, the transaction coordinator will kick it back, and you will have to redo all your paperwork and have your seller re-sign everything if you don't send it to us and we don't catch it, right? When you're on the 100% program, we're not reviewing all your documents. We're only reviewing it while you're on your first 3 transactions. Unless you say, hey, can you check this, review this one page, I'm not used to filling this out, great. But after you've done your 3, I don't review any of this stuff. So that's why we are watching everything you do while you're on your mentee program. So here we go, is you're gonna put your clients' names, both husband, wife, however many people are on that tax record. Realty One Group is the company, and you're gonna have the exclusive and irrevocable right commencing on. That's not the date that you're sitting there with them. That's the date you're gonna go live on the MLS. Super important, right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, it's today's date. It is not. It is the date that you're going live, and then it's gonna expires on what date. I generally will do a 6-month or a year listing, depends. If they're out of state, I'm gonna do a year because I'm like, hey, let's just leave it on there. It's all negotiable to them, but I, myself, don't do less than 6 months because I need time to market the property, especially if they're high. If they are making me do it high, and I have a whole nother thing on pricing, which I talked about in last class, I don't like to overprice, right? Because anybody can pull my production, and if I price too high and the house is sitting there or it expires and I don't sell it, it looks bad on me, like as if I don't know how to price my properties or sell homes. So with that, I might do a little bit higher. And if I go higher on my list price, then I'm gonna go longer on my listing because you're making me sit on the market at too high of a price. I'm not gonna use that as my 6 months, right? But again, it's all negotiable. You guys are independent contractors, so you're gonna do what you want. Some sellers are like, hey, I've got a $2 million property, I'm gonna give you 1 month to sell it. If not, I'm finding another realtor. If you want that listing and you think you can do it, then go ahead and take it. And you're just gonna mark it and throw money at it, and try to get it sold. But you guys are gonna do whatever you want. But general rule for myself is I take a 6-month listing. So that's start the day that it goes on the market, and then 6 months to the day. And then it says city, Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, Henderson, you're going to put whatever it is there. The county of Clark, and the parcel number, which is found again, it's found on your tax record, right? And because it's not on the MLS unless somebody's listed the property. So again, when you're looking at homes on the MLS, unless it's been listed before as a resale, it will never be on there. So some people buy their homes brand new and they're the only owner for 20 years. You'll have no history on the MLS because it never hit the MLS, right? So those are just resale properties. All right, and then you've got the address, and then it's got the list price, and then your earnest money. So you're going to put in whatever list price you and your sellers have agreed upon, and then your earnest money. Be realistic with the earnest money. I've seen people $100,000 for a $900,000 home. That's a lot, guys. $8,000 for a $500,000 home. No. I generally, anything under like $350,000, I'll do a $3,000 to $4,000 earnest money. But I kind of like the $8,000 mark if it's under, $900,000, and then anything $1 million or over, you can do $10,000, you can do $20,000. But the purpose of the earnest money, my phone is going crazy. The purpose of the earnest money is to, in good faith, the buyer's making an offer. So in good faith, I would like you to remove your property from the market, which you have to. You move it, and because you're taking your house and taking a risk on me, and you're taking your house off the market so nobody else can make an offer, I'm in good faith going to move forward, right? And if I default, then you have every right to take that money. But sometimes the higher that earnest money, people don't even, they're like, I'm not going to put $20,000 down. I'm out. And you might lose a buyer over just the earnest money, and they haven't even gone to see the house. It's a big deal, right? So again, there's a whole other class on the earnest money, and it's usually the buyer side that has an issue with that. So just be realistic in that, but also don't put $1,000. There's some agents that do that, and you'll get offers. You could be asking $10,000, and the buyers are investors, and they're giving you $1,000. Do not take your house off the market for $1,000, because that's usually, okay, it's $1,000, and I'm going to try to assign the loan to somebody else in 30 days. So they're trying to make money off of you, and then if they default, they only get $1,000. That earnest money, you want to make sure that it covers the suffering that your seller took to take it off the market. Their mortgage, their utilities, their HOA, like they took it off for over a month, and now they have to pay for that because that buyer defaulted. Do they always get it back? No, and we stay out of that fight. That's not a fight that we fight for them. We just tell them, hey, you put it up there. Title is a neutral third party, so they can't release it, even though you have paperwork that says they're going to need us. If there's a dispute or a cancellation, great. Title, can you please release the funds? They're going to send me, as a listing agent, a form to sign for my clients, or my clients to sign. Then they're going to send the buyer's agent for the buyers to sign. It has to be mutually agreed upon, and if one party doesn't sign it, title cannot release it, even though we all agreed upon it at the beginning. So at that point, you have to say, okay, if you want to fight for it, you can have to take them to small claims court or sue them. Like that's something, whichever party it is. But we stay out of it. We cannot be involved in that. We are not, if they call us to go to court, we have to go, but we don't fight for them, guys. Our attorneys do not cover them. Our legal attorneys cover us as realtors if somebody were suing us. So it's not like you can use them to go fight for your clients, right? Oh, okay, so after that, the terms available. What kind of terms are you taking for that house? Cash, conventional, FHA, VA. If you're doing a lease, we don't really like the lease option one. We don't like you guys to do that because that's the slippery slope. So you're not going to use that one. But lease, you don't really want to take a listing with an option to rent it too, because now you're going to market and spend a whole bunch of money, and then they're going to find somebody that wants to rent it. And you get, what, $500? So you don't even get compensated what you just spent marketing for that property. If they say, hey, if we can't sell it, then I'll rent it, great. Give me 6 months to sell it or 3 months to sell it. And if you can't sell it in 3 months, then we'll go ahead and list it to rent. But you want to get that option to try to sell it, right? Number 17, seller does or does not. Oh, yeah, okay. So seller does or does not authorize broker to disclose existence of multiple offers. I require my sellers to sign that. I just initial it. Just like I require you to let me tell them that I have multiple offers if I do. because I think it's a bargaining chip. And if they know, if the buyer's agent says, do you have multiple offers? I'm not at liberty to say. Well, what does that mean? If I say, yeah, I do. So give me your best. That's it. We got a whole bunch sitting right here. I mean, when the market's good, you can have 15 offers and all of them are 50,000 above your asking price. Now, the next one is, does the seller authorize the buyer to disclose the offer price and terms? I marked a yes on here, they do, but I don't, okay? Now, I have them mark yes on there because if my seller does tell me that I can, then I marked no, then I have to say, okay, yeah, I'll get back to you, Mr. Buyer's agent. Hey, I need you to re-sign this and initial that and correct that, saying that you're gonna let me to, da, 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 da. So what I do is I tell them, I want you to mark yes that you're gonna let me tell them there were multiple offers, and I want you to mark yes that you're allowing me to disclose that. But I'm letting you know, I'm not going to tell them how much that price of the offer is, because they're like, well, how much is your highest price? If I tell them $510, they're gonna give me $512. Okay, if I tell them, hey, it's way above $510 or it's above $500, guess what? I don't know what they're gonna give me, and they're gonna try, okay, I might get $550 for my clients. So I won't tell them unless we have this other situation, whatever it could be. I want them to have authorized me to talk to them, but I'm gonna tell my seller, I'm not telling them unless there's some major reason to tell them. Right? But, okay, so section 3, the following personal property items to be included. Washer, dryer, refrigerator, storage racks, and hanging storage racks in the garage, whatever it is that they're leaving behind, put in there. And the storage racks in the garage are like one of the number one things that men and women fight over. The women are like, no, leave them. And the husband's like, do you know how much those cost? I want those for the next house. And then we say we're leaving them, and then the buyers get in there like, look at the storage racks, because anything bolted in and affixed to that house stays unless otherwise talked about before. And if my sellers are like, hey, I'm changing out that chandelier, I said, then you need to change that before we go to the market. Well, I want it to look great in the pictures. Well, then you risk losing it, because it can become a negotiating tool to where they're like, no, I'm not buying the house unless I get that chandelier. Okay, so you don't want that. So you want to just have them put in there what they're really leaving. And then the following one is what is not leaving. So like the chandelier in the foyer, they are not leaving that, and they can't get an electrician there until for 2 weeks to come and take it down and change it out. Then I'll put a little note, and I put sticky notes all over my houses. This does not stay, this does not work, I know it looks crazy. I do it after I've taken the pictures, but then that way, when a buyer's agent walks in there, they know what's staying and what's not staying, right? And there's no discrepancies there. But I put it in my MLS and I put sticky notes. That's just me. I go a little overboard sometimes. But, okay, 3C, the property does or does not contain smart technology. That's anything set up to a Wi-Fi. Yes. You have a question?
Back to the, what if something's just optional? I do have someone that fish tanks, big fish tank, but it could stay with the house, but.
You can remove it. Yeah, if they want to leave it, but.
Okay.
I would put it on both of them. I would put it on both of them just to cover yourself. But the bottom one is really what's not staying, and they're for sure taking out. So you can put fish tank and then put optional there. Nobody's going to see this paperwork but you and your seller and the brokers. Okay, so it doesn't go to the other side. But in case there's a lawsuit somewhere else, like we were very clear and you signed that. And then in the MLS, fish tanks can stay or can be removed before close of escrow. You're going to disclose that. And then hopefully the buyer's agent is going to give you an offer that says fish tanks to be removed, in additional terms, fish tanks to be removed prior to close of escrow if they don't want them.
Oh, I see, but that's a good one. But what if it's because so it's optional, but not as part of the home.
Oh, they could purchase.
Yes.
Okay, so we don't want to get involved in that, because outside of that, it becomes chattel. Chattel is anything that you can purchase that's got a monetary number. The problem when you're saying, hey, you can buy this, this sales price does not include all the furniture inside, that can be purchased outside of escrow. That relieves us, and you're going to put that in the MLS. But with your situation, you're going to put fish tank can in the MLS, agent to agent remarks. Fish tank, not in here. I mean, you could, because this is between you and the seller.
Staying with the property, right?
The what is? Yeah, it would not. It's not staying. But yeah, I would put into the not staying and put in parentheses can be purchased outside of escrow, And then, because your seller's gonna sign this.
Yeah.
And then in the MLS, additional terms, agent-to-agent terms, you're gonna say, fish tank does not stay but can be purchased outside of escrow. Because here's another thing is, if it's there and the appraisers come to appraise it, and then they're like, wait a minute, now there's value to that, and that's not in that price of the sales, and so now you got a problem. The lenders are gonna have a problem with it, so you can't put a monetary value. And I myself do not handle that. I always just say, hey guys, you can give me an email and I'll forward it over to them, and if they wanna exchange money, they're leaving it on the counter for this person, like I'm not touching that. Like you stay out of all of that, because you're selling things now. Like, that's not our job. Our job is to sell the house. And we can get into a lot of problems with that. But yes, we do run into that situation a lot. Like, if you want it, you can have it, but it's going to be X amount of money. Okay, so I'll forward that email. Can you put it in email? I'm going to forward it over to them. Like,
Because I did ask them, the fish tank is the size of that TV.
It's huge.
So bigger probably.
is it in a wall or hanging, or is it just on, like, sitting
No,
on something?
It's separate, right? But but they don't want it to be part of the home. But they don't want to
Just leave it to
remove
form.
it. Yeah, they're willing to sell it. If they don't buy it, then they're going to take it with them.
Yeah, and so what I would do is I get an offer in there if it's not disclosing. I would put all that stuff in there. If I get an offer that's not disclosed in there, I would pick up the phone before we start negotiating, say, what do they want to do with this fish tank? Because then that way it could be a deciding factor, because how much is it going to cost for them to remove it and all of that kind of stuff, and now I have to drain it, now it's a whole bunch of the stuff. Like, am I leaving the fish? Am I not? Because now it becomes, I bought the fish tank, but now you're not leaving the fish.
But not the fish.
You're not leaving the stuff inside. You've taken everything out. Like, see how fast it becomes an arguing thing?
Expensive coral.
Yeah, like, you don't know. And they've got little mini sharks in there when they thought it was just goldfish. And like, I don't want sharks. Like, and now it's just a huge dispute. So at that point, they'd have to draw something up, outside of escrow, to be very specific, just to include, this payment is just for the fish tank. No fish, no water, no anything.
Because what if they don't want the fish?
Yeah, a lot of,
You say email the other side too, you mean the agent.
I have my
You're saying-
clients email me, and I just forward whatever they email
To
me.
their- to their
There you go.
agent.
Because you don't want your clients talking to the other side,
Right.
right? You never want the buyer and seller talking. You never want your clients talking to the other agent. So, it's like, I can forward it for you, and I would just say, this was not written by me. This is forwarded from my seller. Please give it to your buyer. You're just disclose. Because we see this a lot with koi ponds in the backyard. They have the pond, but they think the fish stay. So you have to disclose that the fish don't stay. Some of those are thousands of dollars in fish. So you have to disclose everything, right? Swing sets also, crazy, but they fight over swing sets. It's like, that's not even secured to anything. But, it's huge. Yeah, those huge ones cost like $10,000. They just thought it was staying. No, I'm going to break it down. It's just sitting in my backyard. So, pool equipment too. Pool equipment should stay with the home.
Yeah.
You know how many sellers take that pool equipment? Yes, so you have to disclose that when you're taking this listing. So if I had a listing with a pool, I would put all pool equipment to stay with the home and be left at the property at close of escrow. Because once your seller signs that and then they go to take it, they either have to bring it back or they have to pay the buyer for a new one. Because sometimes you get in arguments with your own client. Like, no, you didn't agree to that. They don't have to buy your home because you did not follow the rules and what you said you were going to do.
You would list pool equipment.
I would.
Which is so obvious.
That stays.
It's like saying I'm going to leave this faucet.
Yep. Sure is.
But people have tried to swerve it. Okay.
Because it's not affixed to anything. So they're like, oh, that's all mine. You know how much this costs? I've had my own client try to take it and they don't even have a pool on where they're going. I'm not leaving it. Well, you need to leave it. It goes with the pool. Pool covers, the ones that, better list that. Yep, better list.
It depends on the seller.
Yeah, if the seller tells you right at the front, I've got a pool where I'm moving and I'm taking this stuff,
Yeah.
then you would have to put that in there and put it in the MLS. No pool equipment stays. Pool cover does not stay. Like, you've got to list it. Now, I had clients that had these really nice, heavy, like concrete chairs because they had one of those beach ones, Entras. Yeah, but they're not affixed. They're just chairs. They bought it separately. You know how many fights? How many, they don't even want to make an offer unless those chairs stay. They're like $1,000 a piece. And they're like, but we've got a pool on the other end. I'm like, okay, we need to put signs all over everything. And that's where my sticky notes come in.
Wow.
Last one here. Like, let's say the refrigerator, is it our job to put, because sometimes they'll have a nice high-end refrigerator and then close of escrow, like they just put the.
Yep,
finger
nope.
and they found-
Whatever is in there and whatever we took pictures of that was been displayed there, you're going to put GE such and such model number.
You do it on our end, or-
Yeah, you're gonna put it right here because that seller likes to switch it up. They'll take that old rickety one from the garage and put it right in there when they
I
took
would think
all.
that's the buyer's job, though, not ours.
No.
No?
No, it comes with the house, and you put it in the MLS that the refrigerator stays. Well, when they walk through the house, they had all stainless steel.
Right.
That added value. That little yellow one that's in the garage that the freezer doesn't work on.
Needs to do it before the picture.
Yeah, if they're gonna switch it.
You're like protecting the seller from themselves. even
'cause
as
the
a
suit-
listing agent.
Okay, because before I'm jumping ahead, but there's this form here, the seller's real property disclosure form. Okay, it's 5 pages, and a lot of sellers are like, it's the seller's job to disclose anything that they've known that's gone wrong with the home. Now, this isn't about appliances. This is about plumbing or electrical or whatever, right? Are you aware of anything happening that has happened? And they like, no problem, no problem. But when I'm handing them that form, I say, you need to be 100% honest. Because this form, I give it to them the minute we go under contract. And if they're not, the buyers have up to 6 years to come back to that seller, and the seller pay 3 times the amount of damages that it costs for that buyer to fix. So you might have like a leak in the bathroom, and they say, oh, no, there wasn't. And then all of a sudden the buyer moves in, and 6 months later they got mold everywhere. They didn't disclose that, so they cut into the wall, and they're like, these are brand new pipes. And then now the seller didn't disclose it. Now there's mold everywhere, and it cost them $30,000. Guess what? That's going to now cost the seller $90,000 to compensate that buyer for all of the inconvenience for that. So that's why you have to be very thorough in what you do, because they just want to lie. I don't need to tell anybody about that, but they do. And then if they get sued, guess what? You guys, they're coming after you too because you didn't tell me. That's why that SRPD form, which we'll get to, you don't touch. You don't touch. But anyway, so let's finish with this one. So the listing agreement. So the 3C, the property does or does not contain smart technology. That just means anything that is connected to the Wi-Fi, your thermostats, your cameras, sometimes your refrigerators, anything you can connect to the Wi-Fi. And then this property does or does not include solar panels for your pool, solar panels for your electricity. If there's solar anywhere on the house, you need to mark yes, right? And then there's a solar form for that. All right, page 2, anything leased on the property, like your alarm systems, your water system softeners, your propane tank, whatever. Most people buy their water softener, but there are some people that lease the alarm system. They'll come in and they're like, the company brings all the stuff, and they just pay a fee, and then they are out the door. It doesn't matter. Well, if it's leased, you need to disclose that because that might not carry over to the buyer, right? And they think they're getting all these cameras everywhere, and they're not. Let's see. So page 2, line 16, the commission. So when you guys have, you're talking to your seller, this commission is just for you as a listing agent. It's not you and the buyer. That's how we used to do it. And we total both of them and put that there. Now this commission is just what you are asking for your seller to pay you for the job you're doing. Okay? So you're going to put whatever percentage that you want in there. Okay? And I hope you've done a very thorough job with your listing agreement, which is the class that we had last week, and how you determine your price. We at Realty One Group, we're not determining that price for you. You're going to determine what you want from each person. But I always tell agents, don't, like, it's my family, I'm working for free. Okay, so who's going to pay your legal bills if you get sued? Okay, you're going to want this number to be at least some kind of compensation to cover you in case you get sued. But also, marketing a home. Okay, it's going to cost you $400 to $600 before you even hit the market. You've got to market the property, you've got to put a sign up, you've got to do flyers, you've got to do photos, you might do a drone, all of that costs money. So who's paying for that? If you're going to take a 0 or a 1% listing, are they paying for all that? Because that comes out of your commission. You pay for it up front, but you don't ever get that back. So you always want to make sure that that commission number is whatever it is that you feel. Now, if you're on the mentee program, again, you're on a 70-30 split for your first 3 transactions. That 30%, Realty One Group is collecting as if you've made 2.5%. Okay? So if you only take a 1% listing, and you're still in the mentee program, we're going to charge that 30% as if you collected 2.5%. So you might be in the negative for that one. You're going to do whatever you want to do. We're going to discourage you.
2%, you're not going to take
You were taking 30% as if you made 2.5. Okay, just so you know.
So if I met two, it's enough.
You can, anything less than 2.5, you have to give verification while you're on the mentee program from Tim. And if he says, yeah, now sometimes new builds, that's non-negotiable. So then we can go to corporate and say, hey, it's a new build, this is all they're paying them, can we take the 30% on that, whatever it is. But again, it's got to be significant. The whole purpose of the 70-30 split is because we're front loading you all the training instead of charging you for it. So we get paid when you guys get paid, right? So that's what that is. It's not like we're making millions of dollars on it. It's just the front loading the training, right? So you guys are going to decide what that is. Now, right after that percentage, it says and or and then another thing. You're going to want to put 0.00, that unless you're doing a flat fee, okay? Sometimes new builds, which you want, you know, you're not taking listing on this, but on a new build usually. But sometimes they're saying, hey, we're only paying $10,000 for these houses. A seller might just say, hey, I can only afford $8,200. So you would put or $8,200, you know, or just, you know, whatever. But this is of the final sales price of broker listing of the product commissions exclusively for this listing. No, yeah, you could do that there because we have another section for your broker compensation fee. But you don't want to put on the buyer side. I see this come through a lot of times because it's kind of worded the same way, and or. With the buyer, if you mark or and or and you put 0 there, that buyer's agent's, I mean, the listing agent's gonna put $0. Like I have the choice as a listing agent to pay you. Not, this is not a listing, say this is a purchase agreement. I know I'm bouncing around, but since I have you all here, I want to make it clear. When you're writing a purchase agreement, you have to fill in your commission as well. So there's a percentage and it says and or a flat fee. And if you put or, you know, like put 2.5% or 0.00, guess what? And you send that offer over to me, I get to choose 3% or 2.5% or 0.00.
What if you do it blank?
Well, that's why I try to tell you to put NA or a line through that. And sometimes, you gotta watch, sometimes the transaction desk just kicks that out. So I always tell everybody put NA or a line. Because some boxes, if it's supposed to be a number, it won't let you put letters in there. So that's when you go dot, 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 or dash, 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 dash. Whatever it is, it'll let you put in there. But try not to put a number unless you're doing a flat fee. You can just put or and then the flat fee of what you're asking.
The gentleman who had led a class last week on Zoom said he
David.
was he said 3% and $1,000 with every one of his transactions.
And you could do that, and that's in the buyer side, so I don't have the exact verbiage on the buyer side, and that might be meaning for like his document storage and transaction fee.
That's what I thought.
And that's, but not on the listing one, I don't think that's what, because we have a whole nother section for that.
Got it.
So I think when you're on the listing one, just put your percentage and then try to put dash, 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 dash.
Got it.
Because let me just read it all 100% sure. So the final sales price, lease, or amount, the listing agreement closer, exclusively for the listing agent is not subject to splitting. Otherwise distributed to any buyer's broker agent. The seller acknowledges that the commission arrangement of the broker, if applicable, must be covered by the separate. Okay, yeah, I think it's just your commission. Seller agrees to pay a commission of what percentage and or blank of the final sales price. So let me just double check that we have another spot. And if not, balance remaining. I don't want to give you wrong information. So if I don't find another spot in there, nope. So yeah, there is no other spot. So guess what, guys? You are going to put on the listing paperwork your percentage, and then I would mark and then put your transaction fee in there. Yes, because you're going to want to make sure that you get that covered if the seller's paying for it. Well, again, you're going to use this page. Remember this page at the beginning? And I'm going to hold it up so anybody on the camera can see that, right? So at the very beginning, we started with this one, which is your notice of broker compensation, which is $600, $200, $800. And if it depends on what the price of the home is. What was that?
And the compliance.
Yeah, yep, so that's the 200. So you would go in here for the list price, find where it's at, and that's where you would click and then put that fee in there. So you make sure it's covered, unless you guys are gonna cover it for yourselves. Like I myself, and everybody's gonna do their business differently, I charge X% of commission, and then after 3 or more transactions, I would reduce it, but they would have to pay that, document storage and transaction fee. Or I would say, hey, I'm going to get this percentage, and now you guys have to, have to pay that, or I'll pay that, or whatever it is. So you guys are going to negotiate. That's all negotiating on your end there. Do you have another question?
Well,
No.
I'm worried about the broker. You said it, 'cause I left them blank.
Which one? On your listing?
No,
You left your commission blank? Well, that's okay. Yeah, don't worry about that. If they've agreed to the 3% and they haven't countered you back on anything, they accepted your offer? Yeah, then if they
So
haven't,
it's blank.
yeah, but you have a percentage in there for your commission, then you're fine.
Fine,
Unless
okay.
they counter
I was
that.
thinking-
Yeah, unless they counter that. No, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
Unless they counter, because they have to accept your offer and that, or counter it. Was that?
Say congrats.
Regret?
Oh.
Oh, sorry. So congrats on getting his offer accepted.
Yeah, because I was like, I was gonna go back now, because.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. Unless they counter it out. Yeah, because they can't just, and that's why I always tell agents, don't leave blanks anywhere. Because they are not allowed to fill in any blanks, but they could. And so if they wanted to, they could, and then that's where we have discrepancies. But, okay, so now we got that clear. Section 5, compensation. You're going to put your commission and then your document storage transaction fee there. So everybody's clear. All right, compensation shall be due on line 29, which is C, underneath that on page 2. I like to put 180 calendar days. And what that means is, if within 180 calendar days of the final termination of this listing agreement, they go under try to go under contract, they cannot go under contract with anybody that I showed that property to while I had it listed. So once that listing expires, they can't sell it to anybody that I showed it to for 180 days. Because some buyers will walk in there as the seller's walking out and they're like, oh, hey, I love your home. Let's get rid of our realtors and then we'll do it behind their backs. Okay, it happens. So now legally I'm due a commission because they sold it, because they'll cancel me, not tell me, and then like 2 weeks later they're under contract and selling that house to somebody that I brought over there. If it was listed, even if it's somebody that I didn't bring over there, if it was listed, I'm due that commission. They have to come to me and then we have to negotiate, because otherwise they can't collect anything and they can't kick you out when you have a listing agreement with a start date and an end date. That's why the end date is super important. All right, page 2 at the bottom, E. Seller hereby irrevocably assigns the broker the funds and proceeds of the seller in escrow equal to the above compensation. In the event any sum of money is due that the seller hasn't paid you, it's going to be charged interest of 10% per annum from the date until it's paid, right? So that's, again, I've never in 20 years have ever had to charge my sellers, but that's if they cancel and they owe you something and they don't pay it, I'm going to charge you 10% until you pay me that, right? So, all right, page 3, agency relationship. This just kind of goes over what your duties are as a seller. Section 8 on page 3, unless exempt, it says the disclosures. That's where your residential disclosure guide comes in. They just have to initial that they have received this from you. You guys are going to give them the whole packet ahead of time. That's why duties owed, this packet, and then you just take that signature page. They have to initial right here that says that you provided that to them. Section 11 is your common interest community. You're going to mark the box, is in a common interest community or is not. And then if it is, that's where you're going to write down all that information the seller gave you. Name of the company, the phone number, what their dues are, if they pay monthly or quarterly, and is the seller current. They might have 2 or 3 of them. Make sure they're all filled in, right? And then the seller's initially in the bottom of every page, just FYI. All right, page 4, special assessments. The seller is or is not involved in special assessments. Those are those SIDS and LIDs. And if they're paying, they know that they're paying, and it asks you for the remaining balance and then how much payment they do monthly or annually or quarterly. So you're going to mark that. Page 4, line 28, number 14, rent or lease. This house is or is not currently rented. If there is a tenant in there, you need to disclose that, and it's a whole different process of letting the buyers come in to see it. You have to give the tenants notice. But if it is currently occupied by a tenant, is there a management company, and it wants the management company's information in there because you have to be able to contact that management company. Then you also need, if there's a tenant in there, you're going to need to get that lease agreement, because that lease agreement cannot be changed with a new buyer. It has to travel to the new buyer, so you have to give it to them, and they're going to review it in the due diligence period to see if they want to move forward with it, right? All right, still on page 4 at the very bottom, line 44, FIRPTA, foreign investor. Is your seller a foreign investor? And they're going to mark is or is not. And then the seller has to initial that they are or are not, okay? Page 5, mediation. This just says if we all are disputing something and we have to get lawyers involved, we're all agreeing to go to mediation first. It's less costly and we can always get things resolved that way, usually first. So they'll initial it, and then once you upload this, the broker's going to initial that, right? And then still on page 5, we're gonna get rid of that. I'm just going over the ones that we need to fill in, right? So page 5, line 34, seller does or does not authorize broker to commence public marketing. You want them to initial does, or sign does, and then initial that. What's that?
Social media.
It's social media, any kind of marketing on the MLS, on Zillow, on anything, right? Okay. And then number 19 is seller does or does not authorize a sign, okay? Some people do not want it. I have a lot of elderly people that are home by themselves, and they do not want to advertise to random people that there's a, their house is for sale. They only want the people with realtors to know about it, right? So they're going to let you know if they will allow you to put a sign out front, okay? And you have to abide by that. If they don't want it, don't put it out there, right?
Is it possible? Also, you have to check the HOA, right?
Yes.
Certain signs, sizes, things like that.
Yep.
So while you're calling the HOA, it might be a good idea to just
Absolutely.
run that by them.
And then I always, when I have the HOA on the phone, I always ask, even though I personally don't usually do the open houses, if it's a vacant home that I'm taking a listing on, I know I'm having new agents do my open houses. I need to find out if they're allowed to put open house signs. Because Sky Canyon, we just found out, you can only put open house signs in your subdivision. Well, each subdivision has a gate. So you have no signs leading up to that. So anybody driving around Sky Canyon doesn't even know that there's an HOA, a home open house going on unless they've gone through the gate. So I always like to ask that information up front because that's part of my listing presentation is I will have open houses done and then I'll say, hey, I called your HOA and they don't allow open houses. Southern Highlands don't allow you to have your own listing sign. They have these little green ones that you can rent or whatever and put out front of the house. That's it. So you invest in these signs with your picture and your name, and you can't do it. It's just the Southern Highlands one. So yes, you do want to ask the HOA.
About the HOA, is there a website to for sure confirm the house with the HOA?
Well, if they're in an HOA, they're gonna know.
I'm saying, for me to find out what HOA.
Well, what I usually do in that sense is I Google I pull up the whole, when I'm doing comps, I'll pull up the whole neighborhood and you'll see if every agent has listed an HOA, but sometimes the HOAs are listed differently, the prices are differently, so you never, ever, ever want to copy that information from the last agent and put it into your listing. You're responsible of everything that you are putting on the MLS for that house, the pictures, the size of the rooms, everything. So you want to confirm everything. So I always do pull the last listing if it was listed before, but then I verify everything and just make sure, so just keep that in mind. Let's see. Then we have the sign. Okay, so let's go to page 6. Page 6, it does finish the commencing, of the seller opt-outs of the social media and all the verbiage and everything. So item 1, line 1, seller may opt out any of the following. So they have lines 1 through B they can opt out of, which is they don't want commentary verbiage and they don't want an automated estimated value like a Zestimate. You don't really want them marking that because then it says or if they leave those 2 blank, they can or seller does not opt out to any of it. So if they mark and initial any of this one on page 5, which says the commentary, or any of these 2 up top, then good luck. You're going to pull all these houses up on Zillow, and yours is just going to have a picture, or it's not even going to have a picture, or it's not going to be listed at all. As much as we have this love-hate relationship with Zillow, we know the public's going there, right? So we should still advertise on there. They do it for free. Now, is the information they take correct? No. I put a listing on, and 2 days later, my seller's calling me. I can't believe you did that on Zillow. I'm like, what are you talking about? I had a 1-story. They said it was 2-story. Said it was completely grass landscaped out front. It wasn't. It was desert. So 3 bedrooms. Said it was a 4-bedroom. I'm like, where did they get this information? So they got to use it loosely. That's why Zillow is not our friend. But we know everybody's going there. So at least they got the address and knew the house was available. And then if they had a realtor, they could say, hey, I found this on Zillow. You know, whatever. But so I generally will have my clients an initial line 13 that says, no, I'm not opting out of any of that, because it's going to be very hard for you to do their job if so. You'll have no pictures of the inside of the house, the outside of the house, anywhere. That means you can't put it, like when you on the MLS, you can't have pictures, you can't and I know with the MLS, we have to have at least one picture of the front of the house. You have to have at least one picture, right? So if they don't let you take anything, if my client as a buyer's agent only has time to view 5 homes, and he gives me 6 properties and there's one that only has a picture out front, guess which one he's not going to look at? He's not going to look at that one. He's going to look at all the other ones where he already knows what he's walking into. So you don't want to do that. You want to market it to the best light possible.
So you typically have them on C sign that portion,
Yep.
but that does then generate an automated estimate.
Yep. Because
I'm sorry.
because if the initial line B, it says we do not want an automated estimate of value. So that's why I leave those 3 blank, and then where it says or, I have them initial. Seller does not opt out. Go for it.
No, I was just saying, how does Zillow even know if they opt out? You have to let them know or something, or?
You know what? I don't know, because I've never taken a listing where anybody has opted out. But yeah, I mean, you have to create.
Sometimes they just don't want.
Yeah.
The neighbors knowing, or I don't know.
Yeah, they do
There's
sometimes,
people out there that
but
don't
it's opting out of everything, not just Zillow. It's either all or none.
Yeah.
So that's why I encourage all of you to have your own Zillow account, because the minute it hits the MLS, Zillow's going to put it on there. You have to log in there and you can claim that listing, and then you can correct or add photos or do whatever you want to it. So if they want to opt out, you'd have to log in there, claim the listing, and say, no, my client's, here's paperwork. I'm guessing. I don't know. I've never had anybody do it, because it makes my job very difficult. So if I had clients that opted out, I would strongly discourage them from doing that, and then consider if I want to still take the listing, because you're not allowing me to market it anywhere at all. On the MLS, I can't list it on the MLS. I can't do anything. So it makes it very difficult for you to. Okay, so page 7. Everything is good until 29A. It's notice of default. You have to ask them, have you been served with a notice of default? So you're going to want to click yes or no, and then if it is yes, you got to put a date in there. 29B, the seller has or has not been served with a complaint from a lender seeking foreclosure. You would ask them, are you current on all your things? Have you gotten a foreclosure notice? Has your lender called you? I need to know. And then 37 is they just have to initial stating that the information they gave you is correct. So if that doesn't show you how much we think sellers lie to us, it's like I asked you the question, if you say, nope, nothing, well, now I still need you to initial saying that I went over this with you. Because they will tell you one thing, but they don't really mean that, right? They just don't want us to know, and thinking that we'll never find out, but we find out. So, okay, page number 8 is where it's got, number 36. I like to have this discussion with my client. Seller hereby agrees that once the offer has been accepted, do we go under contract show, under contract no show, or determined by seller upon acceptance?
Where?
On page number 8, number 36. 836. My thoughts on this is I always do under contract no show. And the reason being is I put myself in the buyer's position. I just made an offer. It's $600,000 home. Do I want them to take it off the market, or do I want them to just continue to let random people come through the house, dirty the carpet, potentially break things, steal things? I don't know. I just say I want to take it off the market while it's under contract, no show. Now, people can look at it and say, hey, I'd like to make a backup offer, but they can't get in the house. The listing agent's not supposed to let them in. There's also contract show. Those are good when you have those buyers that are like, I don't know if their loan's going to go through. I'm just going to keep showing it. You'll know because you're verifying all that when the offer comes in. Now, the determined by seller sounds great, but then it's extra paperwork you have to do once it goes under contract, because transaction coordinator is going to ask you, great, I need a change order that says this, and there's a whole bunch of things. So I just like to tell them, hey, let's just take it off the market. We're not worried about anybody else coming into your home, breaking anything. Because again, if they have other people come through and now they've got stains, somebody tracked grease all over the carpet, who's responsible for that? Seller. So now you've got damages on your house, and so to me it just is better that it's under contract, no more showing. If it falls out, we'll put it right back on the market. But that's what I do. But you guys, again, you're going to talk to your seller about it.
When you take a home, when you go into contract and you're like, oh, we're gonna put it right back on the market, do you have to then
No.
redo much of this or no?
Nope. And so once you accept an offer, you legally have to put it under contract, no show or whatever you're going to do, right? But then if it falls out, you have cancellation paperwork. So in SkySlope, there's a tab, and all that you're going to have a form that says we cancel, but then you're also going to have, there's like 4 forms that the transaction coordinator requires you to include in that thing. You upload it into SkySlope, and then you just put the house back on the market. And you just go into the MLS and say ER instead of under contract. So you just change it and it goes right back on.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's some people that take a year or 2 year listing. A lot changes. SRPD changes, like the HOA has changed. So at that point, I would expire it out and then put it back on if it's been, usually you'll see that in land and commercial where they have to find out what they can build and permits and stuff like that. So with this, it just change it right back and put it back on. Okay, 1031 exchange. So page 8, number 37. 1031 exchange. Seller does or does not intend on doing a 1031 exchange. So that would mean that this property that I'm listing is an investment property. 1031 exchange is just rolling. They're not, once it goes under contract and we close, that seller never gets the money. They roll it into another property, right? It's another investment property. So you would mark yes, no, what there. Additional terms, anything that you and the seller have agreed upon. And then page 9, fill all of this stuff out, which is your client's information. They're going to sign it, date and time, and it's their phone number and email. Why this is important, in case something happens to you guys and we have to take over your file, we know how to get a hold of your clients, right? Super important. But then your information, your broker's information, and then you have to sign it, and then it gets uploaded into SkySlope, and then Mark Otero will sign it, okay? And then this last page here, they're going to initial saying equal opportunity. They are not going to tell you who you can and can't sell the house to. I'm going to list the home. Whoever comes in, if they're qualified, we're going to look at their offer. Plain and simple. Okay? So that's the listing agreement. Just a couple more real quick. We have the affiliated business arrangement that just says that we have other companies like Rock Title and the lender that we our partnership in, and your clients just have to sign, date, and time that. Then we have the marketing arrangement, which means, hey, we market for these companies in our offices. Doesn't mean you have to use them. We just have to disclose that their flyers are going to be here. So your clients are going to sign, date, and time that. Then the wire fraud. Whether you have a buyer or seller, they have to fill out this form. And really, it just says Realty One Group, and then it's going to sign, date, and time that says wire fraud is rampant right now, so just verify if you're going to accept money from a wire or send money out. Verify with who that comes from. Okay, here's your checklist form again. Again, every file, whether you're buying, selling, or renting, is going to have this checklist form, and you're going to follow it. And our last form is that SRPD. It's a 5-page document, seller real property disclosure form. The question here says, are you aware of any problems and or defects with any of the following? So you are to hand this to your client. Email it over to them, have them print them out. Don't care. I don't like putting it through transaction desk because there's all these little boxes and you're going to hope that they mark the right one, right? So I let them hand fill this one out. I don't even put the date on it. I don't even mark where it says name or address and was this ever occupied by the homeowner. I don't fill anything out. My hand never touches this because guess what? If they lied and get sued, guess what they're going to say? Well, she filled it out. Yeah. Do not touch this form, right? Now, what I do when I take my listing paperwork, I sit with them. And I go, okay, I will sit with you and help you answer these questions because it does get confusing. Are you aware of any problems and or defects with this? And they're like, no, my electrical system's fine. But did you ever have to rewire anything? Oh, yeah, I did. It's past stuff. It's stuff when they bought the home and that seller gave them this. There was mold and it had that mold travels with the property forever, so you do have to disclose any of it. So if they're like a well and pump, if there's no well on the property, it is NA. It's not no. No means there's no problems with it. NA means it's not applicable. So you're going to have yeses and nos. Anything that has a yes on page 3, you have to disclose, whether it's positive or negative, okay? And what I mean by that is on page 2, there's a whole section number 8. How would you guys answer this if on your own home? Okay, so not a condo, not a townhome, just your own home. Any features of this property shared in common with adjoining landowners, such as walls, fences, roads, driveways. Okay, most everybody says no. Okay, it's yes, because most of them will have a brick wall or a vinyl fencing that they share with the neighbor. You don't have two fences together. Now, when you're in a condo, of course it's yes, because you're sharing a wall or a townhome. But with regular houses, single family, they're like, I don't share walls with them, but you do. You share your backyard wall. It's not just your house, right? Anything that you share with the neighbor. So
What part is this on?
that's page 2, line number 8. So number 9, so that's going to be yes there. Number 9 is common interest community. So if you're in an HOA, that's going to be yes as well, and you're going to go down and mark those questions, all those questions yes or no. So on page 3, you are going to have some yeses that are positive. It's not like a negative. Anything that you see a yes, they're like, oh my gosh, the house must be falling down. No, it's just stating that there's an HOA. So what I do when you're filling this out, page 2, line 8, yes, we share a backyard wall with the neighbor. Page 2, oh, it's not this one. Page 2, line 9, yes, we are in an HOA. Monthly fee is $86 per month and includes our subdivision with a gate. You know, that they're going to write all that stuff down, but not every yes is a negative. Right? But now, yes, there was a plumbing issue. We had a plumbing burst, a pipe burst underneath the house, flooded the whole house. You've got to be descriptive. In 2019, this happened. This company, ABC Plumbing, came out and repaired it. Invoices attached, if they have it. So if your clients ever have any kind of major work, plumbing, electrical, roof, tell them to keep their invoices, because it's super helpful. Because you as the listing agent are going to give this to the buyer's agent the minute you go under escrow, right? I try to get this from my sellers within 24 hours of accepting the offer, because if there are any yeses, I like to give it to my home inspector. And I say, hey, can you just double check these areas? Now he's double checking everything, right? And so now they have reassurance that way. But otherwise, then the next page, page 4, because 3, you're going over everything. Page 4 is just the laws, the NAR, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And then the page 5, same thing. And then they're going to sign, date, and time it. And then there's a spot for the buyer to sign, date, and time it, because the buyers have to agree to that. I always say it's better to disclose up front than it is 2 to 3 weeks in. They disclose, and now the buyers want to walk away, right? Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do we have to disclose if we are related to the seller?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like
Absolutely.
cousin?
Uh-huh.
Any kind of interest, right?
Yep, and I always say 2 arm lengths, you know, cousins. You could put second cousin, but it really doesn't matter. But I say a blood relative that's very close, somebody that you're very close to.
Where
Now,
put that?
I don't know if it's in. It's got to be somewhere in.
I didn't see that.
You know what? And where would
Yeah,
that be?
that's any of-
You know what? I don't even know that there's a spot in here, but you are going to want to put it in your MLS agent-to-agent remarks.
Agent
Yeah.
to agent remarks.
Everything that's, yes. So you don't ever want to disclose it in the public remarks. That stuff is like listing agent is related to buyer's agent. I mean, listing agent is related to homeowner. You know, you're just going to, yep, that's
okay?
it. That's all you need to do.
Listing agent related to home.
Yep, related to homeowner. And then if they call you on it, or, you know, listing agent is homeowner, you know, does own the property, something like that, if it's your own property. You still have to disclose that too, right? So there's a whole bunch of stuff like, and then when you're a buyer's agent, it's going to have a spot on one of those last pages that said, are you related to this buyer? And then this, I think the seller, I don't know if the seller has it on there either, but I don't have the paperwork.
If
you have an interest.
Do I have an interest? Mm-hmm. Just because I'm related to him?
If you're related to him, yeah.
That's an
And if it's like I have one that she's taking the listing or helping her boyfriend buy a home. They're not really related, but they might eventually get married. So she should and has. I made her disclose that listing agent is representing her boyfriend in the process. and it's just him buying the home, but it's always best, guys, to disclose. I'd rather them back out at the beginning or not even make an offer on my property than find out later on and go, whoa, 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 you're too involved in this. So, okay, I know it's pretty fast, pretty long. Any questions? I like to be very thorough, but again, if you're on the mentee program, you're going to fill out your documents, send it to me and Tim to review. We review it, give it back to you, make any corrections, and then you send it to your clients to sign. So then that way you know that it's done properly. You don't look like, oh, sorry, I messed up, because you don't want them to lose confidence in you. So we will review anything, even if you're on the 100% program. We will still, hey, I'm not familiar with this form, and then we'll just say, hey, but we also have a resource called OneRealtyResource.com, and there's videos on how to properly fill out every single form. Now, there's a couple of them that were changed this year, so those have not been updated in there, but the gist of it is there because it's the same listing agreement. It's just 2 or 3 things got changed in it, so it looks a little different, but all the rest can be answered through there. But, all right, any questions? Huh? Okay, let me just shut this off. Okay, let me shut it off and then we can talk. Okay.